I hated this book. Emily Henry can do no wrong in my eyes. Very brave. I know that sounds shady, but like, I'm being genuine. Did I still shed a few tears? Well, yes. It broke me. Like, if I think about it too hard, I'll probably start crying. Suzanne, you will pay for your crimes. Hi amiguis, welcome back to another monthly book recap. My name is Pam and I read a lot of books, and it is June. Happy June, happy Pride. Yay, happy Pride.
Happy gay month, because you know you gay and stuff.
I am very excited that it's summer in full force. Well, is it officially summer? I don't think it's summer yet, but vibes wise, it's summer, it's gay, it's pool time, it's sun time. Honestly, summer is not my favorite. I'm gonna be real, because it's so freaking hot here in Texas. But there's some fun things that happen in the summer. I have some fun books that I'm reading right now, and I've got some books to talk about that I've read in the past month. So let's just get into it, shall we? Unfortunately, I think maybe only one is a gay book, but that's okay. June is when I'm reading a lot of gay shit, but that's okay. We'll do a post-Pride recap of the books that I read during Pride month. I'm not actually like planning out my reading to line up with Pride. I just happen to have a lot of like gay books in my TBR that I'm just serendipitously reading during Pride month. So yeah, we'll talk about those next month, I guess. Right now we're gonna talk about the books that I read in May, and we're kicking off the bunch with an audiobook. There's a few audiobooks, a few physical books. I did manage to read more physical books this month. Reading slump was over. I had a lot of highly anticipated reads that I got into in May, so I'm excited to talk about those, and that kind of boosted my physical reading throughout the month. So I'm excited to talk about them, but we're first going to talk about the first audiobook that I listened to in May, which was Brutes by Dizzy Tate. And unfortunately, the start of this recap is going to be kind of a low note because I hated this book. This book is very all vibes, no plot, but the general premise of it is that we're following this group of teenage girls in Florida. This group of girls, they kind of idolize a couple of girls that are in the grade ahead of them. And one of those girls that they really idolize and view as like very iconic and aspirational, she goes missing, and these girls are kind of following this disappearance along with the rest of the town. They start looking for this girl, and the disappearance is like extra juicy because she's also the preacher's daughter, very Ethel Cain tease. So that adds like an extra layer of intensity and of intrigue to the whole case for the town as well as these girls. And that's kind of it. Honestly, like based on the premise, I thought this would be more like thriller vibes, mystery. We're gonna find out what happened to this girl that disappeared, but it really wasn't that. It was more an exploration of girlhood, of adolescence, of like the griminess of Florida when you're living in poverty, like middle class, working class America. The premise in and of itself, and the fact that it had no plot, all vibes, like that wasn't necessarily what I disliked about the book. It was just that it kind of didn't do anything with the characters that was particularly interesting. It wasn't like saying anything interesting or like exploring anything. It was really trying to be like dark and grimy and edgy, and I don't know, it was just like trying very hard with like a lot of words and saying nothing at all. I think the most interesting part of the story was the format and the perspectives that we're exploring the story through, because some of the chapters are from the girl group as a collective. So the perspective is like we go to the beach, we do this, we follow the older girls around, we think they're beautiful, which was interesting. I don't know that I've ever read anything from a perspective like that, but I think because of that, there was no character development, because it's a group of like, I don't even know how many girls, like I couldn't tell you a single one of their names. I don't know how many there were. There could have been like 4 to 8 girls in this girl group, and I don't know, because we only get like this perspective of them as a collective, and there was nothing special about them individually. And then throughout these chapters where we're getting like their joined POV, we also get chapters of them as individuals, but it's like much later in the future when they're adults, kind of reflecting on this time, and we get to find out about their lives in the present day. But even then, I didn't know who anybody was, because the present day chapters were not very interesting. They weren't developing the characters as individuals. They weren't saying a lot, and yeah, I don't know, I left kind of feeling like I didn't know what the point of this book was, and like it was a waste of my time a little bit, which honestly is like the most egregious thing to me. Like if I read a book that I really don't enjoy the writing of, but like the book, I can tell at least like the author's perspective, the author's point, what they were trying to say with it, like I can appreciate the book a little bit more for that. But like, I don't know, the writing in this wasn't terrible. It was very like purple prosy in a way that I didn't enjoy. Like I didn't find any of the metaphors or whatever, like descriptive language, it didn't speak to me in any way. But the writing wasn't bad. It just like didn't have a point of view. It didn't have a perspective. It didn't have a message. So that's kind of what I hate it most of all. If you vibe with like a story where you're just kind of wallowing in like what it's like to be a low-income teenager in middle America in swampy Florida with just like a lot of depravity around you, but like nothing else to say, then maybe you'll enjoy this, but I personally didn't. And I've seen this book compared to The Virgin Suicides, and that's like one of the very few books that I've ever DNF'd, because I just didn't enjoy that exploration. So maybe it's just the wrong type of book for me. I didn't like Virgin Suicides. I didn't like Brutes. Yeah, overall, not for me. Sorry, Dizzy Tate. I have a dizzy taste. Distaste. I don't like this book, but it is what it is. I finished it. I got through it. The audiobook was a quick one, so got through it in the hopes that it would say something that I would appreciate it by the end, but I did not. I gave it 2 stars. Now to kind of jump off of that, what I was saying about when a book doesn't have the best writing, but I can still tell the perspective and intention behind the story that the author has, and that making me appreciate the book a lot more. Let's talk about one of the physical books that I read this month, which was Harriet Tubman live in concert by the one and only Bob the Drag Queen, Miss Roberta herself, one of my favorite drag artists, one of my favorite Drag Race alums. I am a Bob the Drag Queen stan, so this is like my disclaimer that I am very biased towards Bob. I am always gonna love anything that they do because I've just been a fan for years and years, and I think they're hilarious and talented, and I was very excited and proud of Bob in like a weird parasocial way that they decided to give writing a shot and decided to publish a novel. And I've kind of been following along in the journey of getting this published, and I've been in book clubs with Bob where he talks about a lot of the inspiration and the writing process. So I have a lot of appreciation for Bob as a person and for this story as a whole. So that is my disclaimer of my bias. But also, I read a lot, so you know, I feel like I can also be very objective and talk about some of the weaker points of this book, which really were just the writing in itself. You can kind of tell that this was written by somebody who's not like an author as their full-time gig. And I feel like after reading this, I was like, you know what? I kind of understand why people get ghostwriters. I kind of understand why people work with co-authors when they're like just a celebrity who's wanting to publish something. But I'm very proud of Bob for like going on this journey and like taking on this endeavor by themselves without a co-author or a ghostwriter. Very brave. I know that sounds shady, but like I'm being genuine. I am proud of Bob. But yeah, the writing, it's not the strongest. It was a lot of like showing and not telling, and a lot of like using the same sentence structure, like a lot of repetition. There wasn't a lot of like switching up of like the metaphors that we were using, and there was a lot of Bob really likes using the sentence or using the phrase, you know how when you do this and it feels like this. I don't know like what a good example of it is. It's just like, you know, the feeling of like when you walk into a cold room, but you've just been outside and you were very hot, so you get the chills, or like that turn of phrase. He uses it a lot in this, and that was just like one that's like jumping out to me at the top of my head, but there was a lot of like little instances like that. There was a lot of like monologuing to get points across. I actually feel like the dialogue in this was kind of the stronger part of just the writing in itself. The like placemaking and like setting you in a scene was a little weaker, but really at the core of this story is just the story of Harriet Tubman herself. Oh, and I didn't even explain what the premise of the book was. My bad. In this book, we're following music producer Darnell as he comes face to face with Harriet Tubman in the flesh, in present day. In this present day alternate universe, there are long dead people and figures and celebrities who have come back to life. We're not really told much besides that. We're just like told that a lot of people have reappeared and have been spotted throughout the world, and we're just kind of supposed to accept that. It is what it is. Harriet Tubman is back, and she wants to meet with Darnell because she wants specifically his help to produce an album. She wants to tell her story through rap and music and hip hop, and she wants Darnell's help to do it. And that's it. That's the basic premise of this. I would say that most of the story we're following this journey of Darnell helping Harriet produce this record and her telling him more details about her story that are maybe not as widely known, and him understanding like the repercussions all these years later of what Harriet did and sacrificed, and how it has brought him and all of us the freedom that we have today. And then we're also exploring Darnell and kind of his personal journey into discovering things about himself and re-emerging in the music scene, which he has kind of left behind after some things happened, and him overcoming that and re-emerging as he's introducing Harriet Tubman to the world in a musical sense. It was a very cool story. I feel like I learned a lot of things that I didn't know about Harriet Tubman previously. Definitely made me very appreciative of her and the people around her, all the formerly enslaved people who really like sacrificed their literal lives for freedom. And just the concept overall is like really fun and unique, and I feel like only somebody like Bob the Drag Queen would think of this and like come up with this, conceptualize it, and then bring it to life. And it was really cool to see. There are a couple of songs that appear in the book that Bob recorded and are on Spotify, which I think is really cool as like a little companion piece to the novel. So the story, the concept are kind of like the stronger points and the stronger aspects of this novel. And I personally, because I'm such a big fan of Bob, I could tell that Bob the Drag Queen wrote this. Like there was a lot of Bobisms injected into the writing of this, which I really, really enjoy. Like Bob saying religion is America's Greatest Scam followed closely by Higher Education or whatever. Things like that like I know that Bob really feels strongly about and talks about a lot, and he included in the book, which I really like loved and appreciated. So just as a fan of Bob the Drag Queen, loved this book. As a fan of reading, I thought it was a little amateurish, but you know, it's a debut novel by somebody who doesn't write as a full-time career, so I feel like that was kind of to be expected. But I still really loved it. Like I said, I'm biased, but I think it's a cool story. It's a very quick read, and I think if you're looking for a fun but educational and important read, and if you're looking for something to read during Pride, this is a great option. I enjoyed this, and I will probably consume whatever Bob puts out next, regardless of its format. If he wants to continue writing, I will continue reading because I just love Bob. So that was Harriet Tubman live in concert. Okay, the next audiobook that I read in May, and the only nonfiction book that I read this month, was Democracy in Retrograde, co-authored by Sammy Sage, who is a writer and founder of Betches, and Emily Amick, who is like a lifelong political staffer and has just worked in politics for her whole career. And this is an informative how-to guide on getting involved in politics and political activism. It's kind of like a self-help book, kind of like political activism for dummies, for millennial dummies. And this was a quick listen. It's not a very long book, which is appreciated when it's about like getting active politically, because it's very concise, to the point, informative, and it kind of lays out actionable steps that people can take when they're wanting to become politically active. And I appreciated that it acknowledged that like it's not a quick fix. Political activism is kind of like a lifelong endeavor, and it's more complicated than you would think. You really have to like do your research. You have to kind of change your mindset and understand that to be politically active, you have to be informed, you have to kind of put yourself out there, you have to take actual steps, and it's not just a matter of like resharing things on your story or signing a petition, which is something that like I kind of need to get ingrained into my brain, because that's, you know, kind of like the social media activism that I sometimes fall into the trap of doing and feeling like that's me being politically active. But the truth is that you have to start at like a hyper local level, get involved in your community, get involved in local politics, and they lay out steps that you can do that. I also really like that they acknowledge that like everybody has different skill sets, so they kind of give examples and steps for whatever your strength is. If you're somebody who enjoys like bringing people together, there's like things that you can do to like make community, bring people together, connect people to organizations, to volunteer work and help, and to political candidates. If you're somebody who likes to get things done, like there's steps for you to utilize your strengths. And I also liked that they acknowledge that not everybody has the same availability. People have different responsibilities, different levels of time that they're able to commit. So they also lay out steps that you can take depending on how much time you want to dedicate and like how active you're able to be. Also, this book is like a very non-intimidating read and a non-intimidating guide. They really want to make this accessible to anybody, and it's structured in like a very straightforward and concise way, and like the tone of it is very conversational, and the authors, like you can tell that they're just like down to earth, cool chicks, and it's very funny, relatable, which I appreciate in like a political nonfiction book. I will say that the audiobook I don't think is the best format for this. If you're wanting to pick it up, I think it would be more beneficial as a physical book, because I do think that there's things that you can come back and refer to that would be easier in a physical book. And also there's things throughout the book that are like activities or like quizzes that are like actual physical handouts that were not the best in the audiobook version. Also, the tone of the audiobook narrator was like very formal and like stiff, and the tone of the book itself was more like conversational and funny and like chit-chatty, which I feel like there was kind of a disconnect with the voice narration, making the book feel a little stuffier than I feel like it would have been if you were just like casually reading it. So I would recommend the physical book over the audiobook. But if you are wanting to get more politically active, I think this is a great tool. If you're wanting like an intro to politics in general, this is a great tool. And I think it would be a great gift to somebody who, you know, is wanting to become more politically active. Yeah, just an important and valuable read, especially in today's society, today's political climate. We all, I think, should be doing our best to engage more in our local and state and federal politics and policies. Yeah, just this was a good reminder to myself, and I think I learned some valuable lessons. I have some new tools in my tool belt, so I definitely recommend this nonfiction guide. Now we are going to talk about one of my most anticipated summer reads, which was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I saw this referred to online as Great BBL, and I love that, so I might refer to this as the Great BBL, but it's Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I am an Emily Henry apologist. Sorry, this is just gonna be a recap full of me being unabashedly biased towards some authors. Emily Henry can do no wrong in my eyes. She is like an auto-buy author for me. I think she is the best modern romance writer out there. I think everything she does is great and beautiful. And even when it's like not my favorite, even when there are things that I don't necessarily love in her books, like I still think they're all great books. So like this is gonna be no different. I'm warning you now. My most basic take, my coldest take about books is that I love Emily Henry. So this book follows Alice, who is a journalist and an aspiring biographer, as she is trying to get a lead and trying to track down, well, she does get a lead and she tracks down a former tabloid princess, wealthy heiress from a wealthy family, Margaret Ives. She is elusive and has kind of gone into hiding during the later years of her life. She was kind of a very famous figure. She had like a very famous romance, and then she disappeared from the public eye. Nobody has been able to track her down, but Alice finally has, and she wants to interview her and potentially write a memoir about her. So she travels to Margaret's home in North Carolina, which is also where Alice is originally from, but now she lives in LA. She travels to North Carolina to try to get this story. Wait. No, it's not North Carolina. It's Georgia, right? Okay, yes. I don't know my southern states. She travels to Georgia to meet up with Margaret, to try to get this deal with her to be able to write her memoir. But the catch is that Margaret has also contacted another famous Pulitzer Prize winning author, biographer, Hayden Anderson, and she's basically going to make Hayden and Alice compete. She's going to allow them to interview her for a month-long trial, come up with like a draft proposal for the book, and then she's going to choose who ultimately gets the deal and who gets to write this book about her. Weird premise, but Alice is like, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Like, I will do anything to get this deal. So she agrees to it. She starts interviewing Margaret, and at the same time, this guy Hayden is in town. She's like trying to be friends with him, and it's, you know, that's like the romance aspect of it. It's an Emily Henry book, it's a romance, that's not a spoiler. She starts, you know, to get to know Hayden. Sparks fly, as they say. The structure of it is we're getting Alice's point of view as she's spending this month in Georgia. And then the chapters are kind of interspersed with excerpts from the book draft that she's writing as she's interviewing and getting Margaret's story. So through these like little excerpts, we get to know Margaret's backstory, her family story, and like all the secrets and turmoil that were part of her life. Compared to other Emily Henry novels, this one is very different because it incorporates like this historical fiction aspect to it with Margaret's story, which is very Taylor Jenkins Reid, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo coded. Like, there is no escaping that comparison, but like in her own Emily Henry way, because at the core of this, it's still the romance. It's mostly about Alice and her ensuing relationship with Hayden. I appreciated that this was different. I have a lot of respect for Emily Henry, like not really conforming to the romance stereotypes and the romance boxes and just like regurgitating the same type of stories over and over. Like, she is always trying something different. She's always giving us like a different perspective. And I appreciated that this was something new. I will say that because of this format and because of like trying to fit in the romance with the interviews and like historical fiction, mysterious aspect to Margaret Ives' story, I do feel like they both suffered a little bit because she was trying to do both things at the same time. I really liked Alice, our protagonist. She was a likable character. She's kind of like this over-the-top, bubbly, friendly, very positive person. But we do explore like the drawbacks of being a person who's like overly positive all the time, and like how you're gonna encounter situations and you're gonna encounter people who are gonna like butt up against that, and it's not always the healthiest, it's not always the best to just like sugarcoat everything. And we do explore like why Alice chooses to be so positive and like why she has the personality that she has, and we learn about her backstory. We get to know a little bit about her family. So I thought Alice was very likable and very well developed. I liked her even though I don't think she was like the most relatable to me of Emily Henry's protagonists. But Hayden, I don't know, I feel like, not that I didn't like him, I just feel like we didn't really get to know him as deeply as we've gotten to know some of the other love interests in Emily Henry books. And I do feel like it was because we didn't get to spend as much time with him because of the Margaret Ives story that we were also trying to fit in here. Alice and Hayden are like grumpy sunshine. Hayden is very much the grumpy, reserved side of the relationship. And like we do explore it a little bit. I just thought it was a little surface level and we didn't get to spend as much time developing his character. Also, I feel like their romance happened fast. I feel like one of the things that Emily Henry does really well in her other novels is like the pacing of the romance feels really good, and it's like slow burn-ish where it feels like very rewarding when they finally get together and things finally happen, and like the longing and the banter and the anticipation really works in the other ones. And like in this one it just felt a little fast, a little insta-lovey, but I do feel like it was because of the development and the chapters about Margaret Ives. And the Margaret Ives story was interesting. I was intrigued. I did want to know more, and I thought how it all tied and wrapped up was well done. I just feel like, yeah, a little bit was sacrificed from the main story, a little bit was sacrificed from the development of Margaret's story, and they both ended up falling a little short by my Emily Henry standards. But like, was I still intrigued? Well, yes. Did I still shed a few tears? Well, yes. I still really like this book. It's not one of my top Emily Henry books. I think one of the things that was also working against this was that the premise of like two writers competing with each other and like the grumpy sunshine tropes and personalities of the main characters was very beach read coded, and beach read is like my #1 Emily Henry book. So I think I was just kind of waiting for it to be on that level, comparing it to beach read the entire time, and it just never truly got there. But like I said, it was still an Emily Henry book. I still thoroughly enjoyed it, and I still had a great time with it. I still think it's a great book, just a little lower on my Emily Henry ranking, but still a great book. I gave it 4 stars still, so Emily Henry can do no wrong in my eyes. That was Great BBL, or Great Big Beautiful Life. The final audiobook for the month was God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This is a thriller mystery book. I think it won in the mystery category for the Goodreads Awards last year, actually, and that's how it got on my radar. But this is a story that takes place in the 70s, 60s, 70s in upstate New York. We're at a camp, a summer camp, where one of the kids from the summer camp goes missing. And the kid who goes missing happens to be the daughter of the family, the very wealthy family who owns the land that the summer camp is housed within. They're the Van Laars, and they're in the Van Laar Preserve. And Barbara Van Laar is the child that goes missing. So we're following that disappearance and like the investigation around that disappearance. And like the weird thing about this disappearance is that 10 years prior, Barbara going missing, her brother Bear also went missing. When he was around 10, I think, he went missing, he was never found, and then his parents had another child, which is Barbara. And now it's like 15 years later, actually, because Barbara's like 15 years old, and now she goes missing. So it's like, what is going on here? Why are all the Van Laar children disappearing? So we're looking into that. We're reopening Bear's case, and the structure of the book is like we're jumping around all over the place. There's like 10 different character POVs, and it's very non-linear. We're like in the present day following Barbara's disappearance investigation, and then we're jumping back to like 5 days ago, and then we're jumping back to like 15 years ago when Bear disappeared, and it's all over the place, very jumpy. The chapters are very short, and there's a lot of characters, so it was a little like, made my head spin a little bit. But I think the short chapters and the multiple POVs help to like keep the pace really fast and keep you intrigued, and like a lot of the chapters ended in like cliffhangers, so you're really wanting to know like what the hell is going on. So I thought it was good, engaging. It's kind of a long book. It was like 15 hours. I'm not sure the physical book how many pages it is, but I think it might be close to 400, which for a thriller I feel like is on the longer side. But even then, like, I kind of went through it pretty quickly because I was just intrigued and it had me hooked. That being said, I don't think it's like a super fast-paced thriller. I just said it was really fast-paced, but I think what I mean is it keeps you hooked because of the length of the chapters. But overall, the story is a little quieter, a little slower paced for a thriller, but I don't think it was like a slow-paced book in general. I really liked the writing in this. I think Liz Moore did a really good job of like placing you in the creepy woods setting of the Adirondack, and I really enjoyed the atmospheric feel of the novel. The impact of it overall, like, I don't think it was a novel that like will stay with me forever or anything, but like it was very entertaining in the moment for what it was. It was like a well-crafted story. I thought like the payoffs were good and the pacing was good. So yeah, just like a solid mystery thriller, which is kind of hard to come by. I find a lot of thrillers like really annoying and cheesy and all the characters to be insufferable. But like this one didn't suffer from any of that, so it kept me entertained. It wasn't cheesy. It was well written. So like checked all the boxes. Will I remember all the plot details like a month from now? Probably not, but like it was a solid read. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars, so that was God of the Woods. Solid summer mystery. And finally, we have made it to the final book of the month. Another highly anticipated read for me, which was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Yeah. I mean, what is there left to say about Sunrise on the Reaping? I feel like it's all been said. I feel like everybody who is a Hunger Games fan has probably read this by now. You've seen the edits. You've seen the videos of people sobbing unconsolably. You've seen people being mad at Suzanne Collins for having the audacity to write such tragic books. And I can't say I disagree with any of those people. I read this pretty quickly. This is the story of Haymitch. It is a prequel to the original Hunger Games trilogy. It happens between Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and the original trilogy where we follow Katniss and Peeta, and this is the story of Haymitch, who we know from being Katniss and Peeta's mentor. He's the only living District 12 victor, and in this book we get to see his games play out. And yeah, it was tragic. It is a good book. Like, Suzanne Collins is just a great writer. She knows how to craft these really great stories that have a very strong message. And like, something that people always say about Suzanne Collins is that she only writes when she has something to say. And like, yeah, I'm sure she has a lot of freaking things to say right now with the state of the world. So that was very apparent in this book. Some of the main things that we explore that can be tied back to today's society are kind of like propaganda, manipulation of media, how easy it is to just accept a narrative as the truth if it's convenient to you, and you can just ignore the consequences of how it affects other people. Very relevant to today. And then we also see like, how does a revolution start? How are the seeds of a movement of resistance planted? We explore that in this book. And then I think it's interesting to see how like those benefits and those seeds that were planted, we don't get to see the repercussions of it until 25 years later with the original trilogy and Katniss's Hunger Games and like that revolution that happens there. I think it's very interesting that we're only seeing like the start of it here, and the people that were involved with the start of that resistance, they won't really get to reap the benefits. They all sacrificed themselves and their lives and their loved ones for this movement, whether willingly or unwillingly, or like enthusiastically or reluctantly. But yeah, this is a really good book. It follows more of like the first Hunger Games structure, because we go through the reaping, we go through like all of the tributes being whisked away and paraded at the Capitol, and then the games, and then the fallout from the games. So it's very much like a parallel to the first Hunger Games book, which was cool to see. And I'm just always like fascinated by how Suzanne Collins is just really good at writing these games where children have to murder each other and like adding new twists and turns, and she really has a talent for that somehow. Some of the things that didn't work as well for me in this one was that it did at times feel like over the top fan servicey with like all the Easter eggs and like all the characters that are referenced and just somehow end up in the narrative. Like literally every character that Suzanne could call back to or like put in this story from the original trilogy and from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, she did. which, I mean, it's not like a bad thing in and of itself. Like, it's a little bit of retconning, but like, it's her world, it's her story, she can do this. And it did feel like a little treat for like people who have read all the books and are really into the Hunger Games fandom. Like, that's always a fun little surprise, or it feels like you're reading kind of like a fanfic in a lot of ways, but now it's canon. Like, you get backstories for some of these people that we meet in the later books, which was cool, but at times it was like, okay, well, that's convenient. And then also, just of all of Suzanne's books and narrators, Haymitch does just kind of annoy me more than like Katniss and I guess President Snow did. Just like his little like rascal persona that he was adopting. Like, I understand it was like a persona that he was putting on for the games and like it was strategic. It was just a little like kind of annoying to me at points. I was like, okay, we get it, you're a rascal, but that was just kind of like a personal gripe. But yeah, I think this was a good book, a good addition to the canon. And was it 100% necessary? I don't know, but it was still a good read. I think it, like all of Suzanne's books, has a strong message, and it is pretty fucking tragic. Even though you know how it's going to end, even though you know what Haymitch's life is like 25 years later, it still broke my heart. I was kind of like holding it together for the most part for the entire book. This is maybe slight spoilers for the next couple seconds, but I was holding it together for the entire book. I was nearing the end. I was like, okay, like I heard this was really sad, but like all of this is kind of to be expected. Like, is it horrible and heartbreaking? Yes, but none of it is making me like sob uncontrollably like I had seen a lot of people doing while reading this. And then I got to the epilogue. Bitch. That epilogue broke me. It broke me. Like, if I think about it too hard, I'll probably start crying. The keys. Yeah. It was sad, but it was a really good epilogue. I feel like this redeems, for me, the Hunger Games or the Mockingjay epilogue, which I kind of hated. As an adult, with an adult understanding of the world, I can appreciate it a little more, but like as a teenager, that epilogue just pissed me off for some reason. But this epilogue is so sad, but it was a good one. Suzanne, you will pay for your crimes. But yeah, that was the last book that I read in May, ending it on simultaneously like a very high and very low note, because that was just such a sad, tragic ending to that book, but a high note because it was a very good book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and yeah, that was my month of reading. A lot of books that I was really anticipating and like lived up to the anticipation for the most part, which I was very glad about. June is shaping out to be a really good one as well. Good and busy month, so I don't know how much I'll be able to read, but like I have some good ones lined up that I'm excited about. So yeah, I can't wait to talk about those with y'all in a month. Let me know what you've been reading, what your opinions are on these books that I talked about. Yeah, I hope you have a very safe and happy and fun Pride. I hope everybody has a great June, except for homophobes. I hope you are so hot and sweaty and uncomfortable all month. But if you're not a homophobe, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. Yeah, I will catch you babies in the next one. Bye!